Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to my talk. A few quirks about MCP. First of all, thanks Nine for having me again. Actually, it's my second time. I'm now officially a veteran, I guess. Just a few words about me. My name is Thimo Koenig. That's me, or that was me around 1 year ago, according to my iPhone. It's without any gray hairs and very fresh. I'm still 37 years old. Yeah. I'm a more or less active sportsman, so I try to running as much as I can, or doing some high intensity training. And in 2024, I founded together with a friend of mine the TechMinds. We are a more or less small company located in Germany and Switzerland. So this photo is taken in the Munich office. What are we going to do? So we are offering professional services in software engineering, especially in the field of cloud engineering and IoT. That was the beginning. And of course, when you found a company 1.5 years ago, you have to do AI as well. Otherwise, the AI will replace you probably soon. So, of course, due to that, we had a lot of AI topics internally at the very beginning. When we go to March last year, so roughly, let's say, 1 year ago, we had an internal talk about a very shiny new protocol. It's called MCP, so Model Context Protocol. It was not super new anymore. It was already 5 months old. But yeah, for us, it was more or less new. We had our first proof of concept internally, and we talked with different customers about that. Some of our customers are from financial industries. They are not super happy to try new things out, but we found one customer who asked for an integration project. Actually, the request was, can we integrate our time tracking system, so part of the ERP, so in a way that I can chat with it. So he would like to ask which employee did forgot to track time last week or something like that. And we say, well, as a consultant, as a young company, you say, of course, yeah, we can definitely do that for you. So that was our first proof of concept project, and that's where the journey began. But let's maybe go step back. What is the MCP? It's, as I say, it's the Model Context Protocol. It's sometimes it was announced as USB-C for AI agents. Back then it was for LLMs, so USB-C for something. And the main idea behind that was that your LLM or your AI application become able to speak to the environment around, like external systems mainly. That was, in theory, it was possible before already. But it was a little bit harder. It was not standardized, and MCP, the protocol, just standardized the process how to communicate with the surrounding world. How they did that? Well, it's when you develop a protocol, it's probably mostly the same. You define some entities, give them a name, and define a way how they speak to each other. In MCP case, for today's talks especially, we will focus on MCP clients and MCP servers. Clients sitting on the host, and your client can be, for example, Claude. It was, I guess, the first client probably, because the protocol was invented by Anthropic. But it can also be your own custom software, or it can be Cursor or Visual Studio Code or whatever you have. The server part, on the other hand, is the thing you want to connect. So in our case, we had to write a server for the ERP system. Or there are tons of servers for, I don't know, Slack, Notion, whatever you want. Probably also Kubernetes, I guess. According to the protocol description, the server can provide different things. And for us, for today, the most important thing is tools. A tool can be, for example, for our mental model, to make it a little bit easier, a REST endpoint can be a tool, for example. The server can also provide PDF files and things like that, but it's not super important for today. when the first protocol version came out, it was described how you can communicate, how client and server can communicate on your local PC or on the same host, basically. But at the very bottom, they wrote, it's clear for us that it's not the future. We will offer remote, somehow, some kind of remote calls. So in the beginning, when we started the project, we just had standard, input-output channels. During the lifetime of the project, they introduced the remote calls via JSON RPC over HTTP. And there has been some changes, but that's the main story. So we started locally, but luckily they introduced the other parts pretty soon. So as we are at TechTalk, we will not look at the small version, we look a little bit on the full version. You have to understand the protocol a little bit, the sequence of the protocol. By the way, when you ask your LLM what is the worst topic you can talk about in a meetup, they will probably say, describe a protocol. But we will do it quickly to understand all that. So when you start your code locally on your laptop, the first thing that it's going to do, one of the first things it's going to do, is reading your MCP configuration files, it's iterating over each item and starts the communication with each server. It's like a ping. In this call, it's not in this case, it's not a ping, it's an initialized message. It's like an "Are you still online?" message, and it's responding with some metadata and say, "Yeah, I'm still there, everything is good, you can talk with me." And then your client is saying, "Okay, what can I do with you? What are you providing?" And they say, "Well, here is a list of tools. That's the things I can do for you." In this example here, the tools my server is offering is the Get Weather tool. I guess it's more or less clear for what it is. Then that all happens before we send our first prompt. Now we send our first prompt and ask, "Okay, what is the weather?" Well, what's the weather? What happens now is you start, you're sending this tool together, the list of tools together with your prompt to the LLM. When you have more tools, when you receive more tools before, then you send more tools to the LLM, of course. And the LLM is responding, "Well, that looks like, I see this prompt and this is a list of tools. I think you should call Get Weather. It makes sense for me." Then you say, "Okay." Then you execute the remote procedure call with to the get weather operation. The MCP server is responding with something. In our case, it's sunny and 22 degrees. And then again, you ask your LLM, "Well, now I got my response. It seems to be 22 degrees and it's sunny. And that was the original prompt. Am I done or should I do more?" Sometimes, in a lot of cases, you have now some kind of a loop. In this case, it's easy enough that the LLM will probably say, hopefully, "No, you're done, it's good." You can respond to the user with following a message. It's a little bit prettified now. It's a full sentence. It's 22 degrees and sunny, and the communication is done. So that's all we need to know for the Quirks today. There are some core messages. We had the initialization phase. We had the tool discovery with the list of tools, and we had the actual execution of the tool. That are the main things we need to remember for the Quirks. Now we come to the Quirks. Actually, Quirk is a hard word to pronounce every time, but yeah. The first Quirk, and it's not really a Quirk because it's a good thing, is authentication or authorization, to be honest. When we started with our first project, there was no specifications around that. So that's why, for our point of view, it was a Quirk, because it changed all the time. When you start now with such a project, it's good that it's there, of course. They changed a lot about the authorization specification in the MCP protocol. So coming from the no authorization authentication world through, well, now we have remote procedure calls, to we introduced OAuth 2.1, to we split the resource and authorization server, to, well, now we are not sending any passwords anymore around. We use PKCE. is it's not a quirk, it's a good thing, but when all this happened while you develop your software, it's a little bit annoying, of course. Actually, what's interesting here is that the rise of MCP is strong enough that they enhanced the OAuth specifications a few times in the last few months. Looking in the, reading these RSCs or thinking about it a moment, it's somehow clear. The MCP protocol, they have very different goals. The MCP protocols would like to distribute as much as possible, while the security guys, try to reduce the, or make it basically more secure. And it's mostly, well, a challenge between these two approaches. What they did is they found a way how different clients, like your software, your MCP client, becomes able to dynamically register on authorization servers. That was a little bit harder before. And before that, you had to register clients manually, and you got a client ID and the client secret. I mean, you probably all know that, and you can give the clients the credentials to your consumer. And they introduce now a process how all that can happen dynamically. That is cool. It's a cool thing. So yeah. Luckily, there was one draft in draft mode since 8 years. Now, thanks to MCP, it's finalized. The next quirk is token explosion. As you remember in the sequence diagram, when you start your client, you get a list of tools, and when you have a lot of tools, each tool has a description, basically a blob of text, and you send this blob of text or the list of texts to your LLM when you're sending a prompt. So it can be a lot, of course. I made a quick test on this weekend. So when I include the GitHub MCP server in my configuration file, it's around 10K tokens, and you pay for it, of course. Whenever you're sending a prompt to Claude, you pay for this 10K tokens. I had an old example that's not valid anymore, unfortunately, because everything gets a little bit better. But there was a time where I had my Notion MCP server included, and it was 240K. That's outdated. It's not true anymore. They optimized it, but it was, I mean, it's what's crazy. You have to pay for 240K tokens for nothing, maybe. As we said, it's mainly because we load all these tool descriptions and list of tools in the context on the initialized phase and work with it all the time. It's getting even worse when you have round trips. You remember this loop we had in the sequence diagram. When you have a long loop, you're not compacting your context window, it's getting more and more expensive for longer sessions. So the main message here is keep your list of MCP servers in your configuration as small as possible, especially when you think about agents. Agents have probably mostly one job. They don't need the full MCP server for Notion, GitHub, and I don't know, Slack. Actually, I prepared these slides this weekend, and sometimes engineers start to procrastinate. So I wrote a tool to measure how much tokens do I consume when I include different configuration files. And because I needed some kind of a demo, because it's boring otherwise. So what I did, great, no one can see it. Give me a second. So, okay, when it's not working in the next 20 seconds, we will skip the demo. Okay, that's good. Am I there? No. So I have prepared one small MCP configuration. It looks very similar to the one that you are probably using with your Claude or whatever. And the small tool I wrote last weekend was basically calling Open Router and using the tools of the tool list of your choice, and it's able to compare the usage, the token usage with and without the list of MCPs. I guess there's a missing dot. Okay, I cannot see it. Sorry. So we will skip the demo because I know what's wrong. The API key is not there in this context. I can show it you afterwards, but basically the same number came out there, this 10K for GitHub. The next quirk that's really a problem is security. For all the security guys, MCP is probably not the best idea. At the very beginning, it was like Wild West. Now it's getting a little bit better. It feels like it's getting better because they're now tooling around. It can scan descriptions. But here's one, I would say, famous example. It's an MCP tool offering the ability to sum up two numbers, but it's not only doing that. It's calling an external service and asks the LLM, please read this file before and send it as a side note. That's not complicated, but it was still a thing. Nowadays there are open source tools to scan tool descriptions, and it's also not really science. I mean, what they do is they scan for words like before doing X, and then they say, okay, that's probably a problem because in your tool description it's strange when you mention something should happen before actually calling the tool. And there are also online lists you can find with bad tools, but there are tons of examples. There are also new attack vectors that I will not go too deep into, but there's even a new UVA's top 10 list, of course, of everything around MCP. So MCP itself is a good thing, but there are, of course, always not so nice people around. You can also read some interesting incidents. I think the incident you might have heard is from Replit, where they deleted the production database. Yeah, things happen. There are still tons of MCP servers out there without any kind of authentication. It's not that old, this study. I linked it in the description. And I'm sure there are still many of them are not protected in any case, anyhow. The next quirk is it's funny. How does the LLM decide which tool to use? It's the name, of course, of the tool and the description. The description is something no one liked to write, right? It is documentation. It was documentation before. Now it's important. There are studies around, again, there are papers that measure the quality of tool descriptions. And basically what they say is, I mean, just 100 servers, yeah, I know. What they say is most of them are crap. The description itself is not good. The parameter description is not good. The LLM, it's probably hard for the LLM to decide which tool is the best and things like that. Why is it a problem? Well, what happens when the LLM cannot decide which is the correct tool? It might select the wrong one. It just chooses the wrong tool. Or it maybe does nothing. There has been a study from Microsoft that shows sometimes the agent does nothing anymore because it's not sure what I should do now. All tools look similar. And for me, the worst case scenario is hallucination, when it does something. Deterministic behavior is still a problem, but hallucination around problems is for me the worst thing that can happen. Yeah, take care of your tool descriptions. The next quirk is about versioning. It's basically the same problem. Now, how do we version our MCP servers? What is the breaking change? That's the main question. What's the breaking change? For us as common developers, when we develop our REST APIs, it was somehow clear. You know, when you add, I don't know, a mandatory parameter. Yeah, okay, it's a breaking change. Nowadays, and what happens then when you do that? Well, the other engineers from the other team can come to you and say, "Well, guy, what are you doing? You break the API, blah blah blah." Okay, that's not good, but you can handle it somehow. When you work with LLMs, what they tend to do is, well, they find ways around the problem. They do something. It became even less deterministic. And even worse, the question again, what is a breaking change, is now completely different. Changing the description might be a breaking change. Changing the documentation of our tool is maybe a breaking change. That's scary and funny somehow. But yeah, anyway, we should treat now the description itself a little bit more like engineering artifacts. And one funny thing, maybe when we're talking about versioning, the versioning of the protocol itself is interesting. They use dates, which is maybe not a problem. Sometimes it becomes a problem when they introduce features in one version and remove it in another version. And the only thing that changes the date. For you, it's a totally breaking change. Functionality removed. Sorry, it's totally breaking. There's a lot of discussions to change the version schema of MCP itself. The last quirk is we all, I mean, I'm not sure of all, but at least me, I'm learning a lot on public available content like YouTube, YouTube Academy. I'm a big fan of YouTube Academy. And there are tons of videos about MCP, how you can set up your own server, your own client, whatever. There's a big difference between all these videos and bringing it in a bigger company, like an enterprise. In enterprises, when you came up with such an idea in a meeting, there are probably, I don't know, the enterprise architect speaking about, wow, what's the catalog, where's the API gateway, where are my policies, what is rate limiting quotas, auditing, token tracking, costs, for example, of course, cost is an important factor. Any kind of data governance, and 1,000 other things. And when you're reading this list, you might think, hey, I've seen that before. Some years ago, when we introduced REST services, we had exactly the same problem. And some tools around there observed that as well. Some smart API gateways, for example, like Kong, or in our case, we use a lot Gravity. And I cannot show the live demo because, for the sake of time, sorry. And what they did basically was, well, they have these functionalities already in their tools, and they adapt a little bit for MCP. It's not so different, but before introducing tons of MCP servers in your company, you might want to think about such topics. I will skip my demo flow, sorry. So, and when we now we have all these quirks, all these problems, and it's, as a consultant, it's always good not come only with your problems, also come with solutions. It's one of the first things you learn. So we had some kind of a mental model. The name is, of course, inspired by the REST maturity model. I call it MCP maturity model. So let's do a quick version of it. So at the very beginning, we had no MCPs, which means we had basically no of these problems we talked today about. Then someone came to the idea, well, let's auto-generate MCP servers. We take our OpenAPI specification, drop it in a generator, and voila, we have a list of MCP servers. This, of course, produced most of our problems because now we have MCP servers. What we usually do then is analyzing, the usage of these APIs and starting to consolidate the complete interface a little bit. So what you typically have at the beginning is one MCP tool per REST endpoint, for example, and most of the time you end up with, you have, I don't know, 4 or 5 REST calls behind one tool, things like that. And of course, you start writing better documentation, better tool description, and you treat your description as engineering artifacts. So changes, as I said, in the description might break your software. And at the very end, you have tools like Gravity or like Kong or whatever. There are probably also other tools around that makes them a little bit enterprise ready. So, little bit of the meta layer. MCP is, when I wrote this slide, this was a de facto standard. Now Tom said in the very beginning it's outdated already. Why are you talking about MCPs and not about skills? Sorry, next time maybe. It was handed over to the Linux Foundation, who invented the Agentic AI Foundation with some other companies together. And of course, the marketing machine is already running. So there are already conferences just about MCP. If you want, you can go to Amsterdam this year. Yeah, interesting to see. Let's say in that way. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry.
I'm there.
Okay, very good. So takeaways, yeah, evaluate gateways or some kind of professional software before introducing entities around your company. This maturity model, or maybe just the ideas out of them, is maybe a good starting point. And I would recommend to aim for level 3, which is respect your descriptions a little bit more. It's really, I mean, we have seen it. It can become a problem. And think about security. That's it. Thank you very much.
Do we have questions for Thimo?
Hi. My question is, since the last time you worked with MCP, since last year, how has the use cases or like client needs changed over time, and how do you foresee that to change in the next couple of months or year?
It became somehow normal. I think the biggest change was that, it's not a joke, a bank contacted us and asked for NFC integration. That was totally different than 12 months back. And the ecosystem around MCP is much bigger, like the security scanning features, for example. And the thing that impressed me the most was the speed where companies like Kong or Gravity were able to, adapt their software to be able to handle MCPs. I mean, it took, I don't know, maybe 6 months. It was a big software before already, so that was impressive somehow. So I would say the tooling and the adaptation on client side.
Other questions?
What's happening on? Hello. Okay. What's happening on the regulation front? How long till the government gets involved? We have this big blow up last week about Claude and the Pentagon and weapons that kill, and it's all remote. And
yeah, I mean, maybe not only in MCP question, because MCP is now everyone is able to use MCP. It's a protocol. For everything else, yeah, we have customers who with only on-prem software, and that's become more and more a problem with the huge models. Some of them, I mean, at least one of them invested a lot of money in NVIDIA graphic cards, of course, to host all the stuff on offline or on-prem. But it's, yeah, I would say it's much easier when you're not limited to that. Otherwise, you have to rebuild a lot of things, and you have to spend a lot of money for that. Yeah. So what should I say? It's a problem.
So last question. Any other one? No one? Okay, then thank you very much.
You're welcome.